Welcome to Small Biz Diaries. I'm so happy to have Wendy Ramirez here with us. As per usual nowadays, we meet people online. So Wendy and I have crossed each other's timelines through mutual friends for a while now. So it's really nice to finally kind of dive in deeper into some of these conversations we've had. And Wendy has worked with, I think it's over 200 clients or small business owners at this point. So her track record speaks for itself. And she recently launched Boldpreneur Academy, which I can't wait to have her say more about. But to start off, I love to have Wendy introduce herself and just see what you'd like to share with us, just to kick things off.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I'm Wendy Ramirez, and I am a marketing strategist for small business owners who are really looking to leverage marketing to build trust with their audiences, build a community, and in the process, be able to generate sales and create lasting impact, whatever that impact looks like for them. I truly believe that great people do great things with money. And so I'm on the mission of helping more Latina women generate more of that money so that we can continue to create ripple effect income in society, in the world, within ourselves, families, you name it. I'm on that mission.
Yes, I love it. Would you break down for us like what being a marketing strategist means?
Yeah. So oftentimes what I find is that when we approach marketing is this big overarching concept that can go one of so many different ways. Do we want to do paid advertising? Do we want to do social media advertising, event, marketing? Do we want to do email marketing? And that alone is a quick way to send someone into overwhelm, especially as small business owners who are operating mostly as a team of one or very small, tiny teams. And so I come in as someone who says, tell me what your business is about. Tell me a little bit about who you are as a person. Are we a mom? Do we have a team? Are we operating solo? Do your clients live remotely near you? Are we doing this more online, more in person? And really, I come in and I'm just like, let me be the brain marketing whiz to help you strategize what's going to uniquely serve you. And we do it in a way where instead of just focusing on tactics, we're planning and strategizing for the long term. And so a lot of times my commitments with clients tend to be 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, you name it, depending on what the scope of the project is, what they're wanting to achieve, and really planning and strategizing for the long term. And in the process, I think that this way of operating for me further fuels my impact because what I've noticed and learned just from being able to work with over 240 clients across 10 countries too is that no one client is the same. And so some of the strategies might be similar, but they're not all the same because every individual that I get to impact and work with has different things that set them apart. For example, I've worked with over 20 website designers, and every single one, my goal is to understand what sets you apart. Where are we going in the long term? And it all looks different. And so at the core of it is strategizing for the long term and not just focusing on quick tactical band-aid fixes and truly fleshing out what these strategies are. I mean, some of them end up being 10 to 20 pages that end up walking you step by step on how we're going to do, for example, going to market with a new offer.
You hit on a lot of important points with marketing nowadays where it's easy to get caught up in one channel or one branch of marketing and try to rely on that. And I mean, sometimes it does work, right? Like there are examples where social media might work for you, and that is your channel that works to really spread the word of what you're trying to, whether it's a service or a mission, accomplish. But there's different facets of marketing. It's not just social media. I mean, digital marketing within itself spans, ads and email marketing, SMS campaigns. So having someone come in with more of a bird's eye view of realizing, okay, if this is your goal, what do you need to get there? And really try to hone in on how that is impacted by who you're trying to reach and all those different components is huge. But as a small business owner, I mean, there's only so many hats you can wear. So it really does help to be able to have a little bit more guidance with what might be the best approach for you, because that within itself could change depending on what your goal is. Every business is different, and that's the beauty of it, is like you have a uniqueness within your business. So how can you tailor that with like an offer you're trying to present or something you're trying to put forward?
There's so many people that are doing, similar things. We can all uniquely leverage like our expertise, our specialties, and uniqueness. So
Yeah, there's definitely room for everybody. I'm a firm believer of that.
me too.
Um, so, okay, how did Lovingly Bold come to be? How did that evolution of Wendy and Lovingly Bold come together?
Yeah. So funny enough, I had Lovingly Bold as an idea for 2 years. Back in 2015, I was snowed in Nebraska, and the place that I was working at that time was a small jewelry shop, and they were like, "Hey, we're not going to work." So I was like, "All right, awesome." And at that point, I had this like little inkling voice inside of me that was just like, "There's something else out there for you. Like, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition." And I remember sitting there and I still have a paper, like drawing out the name of what this could be. I'm like, what do I want to become known for? Like, that was the question that
Oh, I love that.
and bold was always a word that I was often described with growing up. So I knew that I wanted to have it be something around bold, but I didn't know what the other part of it was. And so then I sat there and I sat there the whole day coming up with this concept when finally Lovingly Bold was born. And I was like, all right, this is cool. But I shelved that idea for 2 years. And so it wasn't until 2019 that I was like, again, that voice was just like, girl, 2017, sorry, that voice was like, do something. And so I created a blog around the idea of Lovingly Bold, which is just really sharing insights on what it was like to get ready for a wedding, moving to Texas. I started sharing Instagram marketing tips because that was where I started showing up more and just sharing who I was, my travels, etc. But then that voice again kept saying like more. And I was
Hmm.
like, what are you talking about? Like it was like this inner battle of like Wendy on one side saying, there's more for the grabbing. What are you doing? You know that this isn't what you're supposed to be doing alone. And then this other voice saying, like, but I'm doing enough. What are you talking about? And this inner dialogue. And so it wasn't until 2019 that I was like, okay, I see it. Like, I recognized that I was playing small with my idea because really what I wanted to do was put what I went to school for, what I've loved since being a child, which is like learning about business into practice. But I was like so scared to do it because I'm like, what if people think I'm a fraud? What if people think I'm an imposter? What if I fail? And so there came a point where like I just had to recognize that voice and be like, all right, fine, I'm going to listen to you. And that's when Lovingly Bold truly took off as what it is basically now today, which is more about marketing and business and helping small business owners just get ahead, really.
I think those two combination of words really can dictate like entrepreneurs' decision making, right? It is scary. Half the time there is no rule book or, step by step manual of what you're supposed to do. So you can look back and be like, okay, am I playing small? Am I trying to approach this decision with love? Am I trying to approach this decision with boldness and embracing, all of those components to really bring out what the best might be in your business is so beautiful because it's almost like it can be a mantra. Which is why I'm sure you've coined Boldpreneur to a certain extent because there's so much conversation I think nowadays that's a little saturated around being a small business owner, being an entrepreneur, what that means, what that the definition of success within that scope means. And I think it can mean a lot of different things and that's okay. And what you need to do is approach your business in a way that feels authentic to you or approach your uh, entrepreneurial journey in a way that feels authentic to you. And those two words, the fact that they resonated with you way back and they still resonate with you and help you today, I'm sure has helped so many others too. But what do you think is the toughest hurdle for people to really like approach the boldness, or step into that?
Really, I think the biggest hurdle is being courageous about how they want to show up authentically.
Mm,
I grew up like oftentimes limiting my voice just because I was told like "Calladita más bonita," like you don't give your opinion. And so coming into the space, I realized like I was capping my own voice too. I
mm,
was playing in a way small because I was like tiptoeing around like, well, I don't want to offend people. I don't want to um cause any harm, blah 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 blah. And there was a lot of narratives that were going on in my mind. And I find that the same is true with the clients that I've gotten to support. Like we are all on a mission. Like I always say, I'm like, I'm so lucky and blessed that I get to work with the most phenomenal clients because they're so impact led. But because sometimes we're so impact led, we end up kind of limiting our voices because we're like so scared to step on the wrong toes. What happens if we get called out? What happens if someone takes something the wrong way? And so I think that the biggest hurdle is honestly like having the courage to be boldly authentic you and using your voice from a perspective of like, I'm doing this to empower people. I'm doing this to uplift them, to show them what's possible, and do it in a way where it's like beyond you. Like, this is no longer about me. And because of that, like, I got to be courageous in the approach that I'm taking because someone out there needs to hear this. Someone out there needs what I have. And I'm doing myself a disservice and then by not being able to boldly put myself out there and do this, you know?
yeah, and anchor yourself almost in the service element. Like, what is it that you're providing, and how really it can be impactful. But it's true, we don't like to cause too many ripples.
That's
Um, or, you do have limiting beliefs or just nurtured through childhood, through your experiences, through culture that really like until you recognize, sometimes it's not even that apparent in how it's like really coming to life from a day on a day to day. But I think as soon as you recognize it, like as soon as you realize like this is something that I see it, it's tangible, it's happened, like it's something that consistently shows up in my life. How
Mhm.
can I acknowledge that that maybe no longer serves me and instead rephrase it or restructure it so that that way you can think of the impact and the service that you're providing instead, which is, I mean, true, like for really any industry. Like it really doesn't matter where you are or what type of business you have, things like that come up. And I feel like it can be very difficult for people.
Yeah, it is. And, like the next thing that comes into play too is like sometimes we put these upper limits in place, right? And this is something that I constantly got to check myself with too. I'm like, how am I like stopping myself from breaking past that? Like, okay, it got this good, but I want better, but I'm
Mhm.
sabotaging myself from going to the
Mhm.
next, next best thing in my mind. And so sometimes we just got to be super cautious too, because I mean, this is relevant, yes, in the work that we do, but in the workplace, you want that next promotion, but maybe we find ourselves like self sabotaging from getting there because we start making these stories or internalizing these things, these thoughts, these beliefs that keep us from going what we want to achieve. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that I get to do with the work that I do with my clients is that I'm able to recognize those patterns and their strengths. So I could see like, this is your strength. Let's not like pull back from it. If anything, let's pour more gasoline on that fire because this is truly what's setting you apart. And like that in and of itself allows me to create that impact, but also show them what's possible for themselves too.
And that's coming, like you're coming in from an outsider's perspective. That's really just there to listen and give that feedback so that people can see what they might not already be seeing on like a day-to-day basis, which
Yeah.
is great. So then tell us a little bit more about Boldpreneur Academy and like what your goal is with that or what people will get out of that, because not only am curious in general, but I think that Boldpreneur also helps people really take themselves out of the entrepreneur components that we were talking about earlier of just like all of the pressure that sometimes you feel with being an entrepreneur and really stepping into something new and something courageous, something that feels more authentically you. So I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, so with Boldpreneur Academy, I'm on a mission of giving small business owners control, really handing back their control and helping them simplify their business at its core. I feel like it's gotten to a place where a lot of business owners feel like they have to constantly be adding more and more and more. And really, like, business doesn't have to be that complicated. It could actually be very, very simple. You don't have to be on all these platforms. You don't have to have, so many offers. You don't have to have an endless to-do list that makes you feel like crap at the end of the day because you weren't able to check everything off. Like, it can be really simple. And so first and foremost, like, that's my mission, is to help simplify what running and operating a profitable business looks like, but then also handing business owners back control. And this comes from a perspective of my personalization, which is what all my offers are rooted in. And the personalization comes into play where I have this whole framework called the ARC framework, which focuses on generating attention through your marketing, retention through lead generation, and conversions through sales. But the personalization aspect comes from, let's get very specific on where you want to grab that attention, how you want to retain people, and what your sales system for conversions is going to look like. Because as we, have talked, like, not one every single client is the same. And
Mhm.
because of that, they need a personalized, unique approach for them. And so at its core, Boldpreneur Academy is about that, because I've been hearing just so many people say, I feel lost. I am tired of showing up and then taking months off and coming back again and feeling like I'm starting over. Or I don't know what to do. I have this great idea, but I've been sitting on it like I did for 2 years, right? And so Boldpreneur Academy is really about, tell me where you want to go and let's make it happen, sort of deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much noise and saturation out there because not only is imposter syndrome a thing, but like comparing yourself to others and not owning your own timeline and like really feeling pressured by family or just there's so many different components. I mean, we could go on and on. That's part of the Small Biz Diaries, that there's obstacles and hurdles that people as entrepreneurs and small business owners have to go through on a daily, weekly, hourly basis. But to be able to take some of that out, right? Like, and really understand what it is that might be holding you back or what it is that you should be focusing on, because maybe you are focusing on too many things and
Yeah.
you're spreading yourself thin. And that's why you have to take 2 to 3 month breaks, because you're really trying to like do too much when you should be focusing on one thing. Is so needed, I think, right now, especially because I see so many small business owners with so much passion and so much, I mean, I'm speaking for myself as well. So much passion and so much energy to do things, but it's almost like you do get little derailed if you don't have just certain anchors or certain things to like bring you back to say, okay, like, yes, Lucy might be doing this with her business, but that might not apply with my business. Yeah, it's just, I think it's so important. It can be so easy to get caught up in that and go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, like, I love installing capability in the people that I work with, like, just truly how capable they are. But also a key focus of, like, the work that I do is like discernment, right?
Mm,
Which I think is really huge, because, like, what might have worked for one person might not necessarily be your timeline or your journey or what's going to necessarily work for you. And I think that's an important conversation to have, because there's a lot of marketing out there. There's a lot of things out there that it's easy to start questioning. Well, I did this last week. Maybe I should try this week. And then it's like you're in a tailspin spiral of, like, losing control. And in the process of you being confused, you're also confusing the person that you want to impact, that person that you have top of mind, that you're so passionate of wanting to support. And
yes.
so I'm very passionate about this program. It's been a program that I have had since 2019. It's just been rebranded and reworked to help meet business owners in this current market and time. And
Mhm.
I've actually added even more practice labs too to help people again with that personalization of like, all right, you need support with a sales call. Let's practice. And I'm going to give you feedback and you're going to get the recording and I want you to watch it and see what opportunities we have too. Oh, you want to practice how to pitch people joining your email list? Like, let's practice that as well because like it's important for me to not only give you the tools, the learning, the trainings, but to also practice that in real life. And that's what allows us to collapse that time too. So I think that's another just interesting component that I don't find in a lot of places or in a lot of programs too.
Yeah, it's true. Like the practicality or and the application, right?
There we
Like
go.
yes, yeah. It's true, and I do love how you said that it's evolved, right? Like the idea has been in the works or has been presented in different forms, but there's an evolution to business, and that's okay too. Like the current market, the current status of things happening in the world, how people are feeling in the world changes. So that's part of the adaptability component that comes with being a small business owner.
Yeah, and sometimes people get so scared of that word. Like I was having a conversation the other day, and they're like, "Ah, adapting just sounds so scary," and and I'm like, "But why?" I'm like, I get it. Like it sounds a little scary, but I'm like, think of this just as a beautiful opportunity to meet your people where they're at, right? Like the reason why it's evolved, the reason why it's where it's at right now is because I owe it to my current, my future, and my previous clients to give them the best of the best. And if something has changed,
Hmm.
then guess what? Like you said, as business owners, we get to evolve. And I think that there's beauty in that if we allow ourselves to see it.
It's interesting what you just said too about like adaptability meaning something to someone just because I've had that happen to me as well. I had a client that I would mention how consistency does help. And she was like, I don't like the word consistency. She was like, I think it feels very limiting and it feels like I'm not being able to step into my creativity because I have to rely on this consistency of, posting twice a week or whatever the case might be. So I think it's interesting to be able to then understand that sometimes you have to approach something completely different because of someone's perspective. And that's part of the messaging or the marketing or stepping into speaking to your audience that might help. And for you, like the adaptability component, and just for anyone, the adaptability component can be a little daunting, but it's also because it's like, I just finished working on this. Like, why do I have to start over?
Yes. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're not starting completely over. You're just making sure that it's still applicable to the people that you're trying to reach.
You're
So,
moving, you're growing, like there's so many beautiful words that we can put into it. Is like you said, it's like how we choose to kind of see it too. Because
mhm,
it's not necessarily always starting over. It can be growing, it could be evolving.
yeah. And that kind of leads me into my next question. So, at Small Biz Diaries, we love peeling back the layers and just seeing where we're all at with our business because as mentioned, being a small business owner can be tough. There are constant hurdles. So, is there something that you feel as though you are struggling with, or learning, or working through within your own journey as a small business owner?
Yeah, so I'm always on the constant journey of just using my voice confidently. You know, someone might be listening to this and be like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" Or they go on stories and they're like, "Girl, you show up fine. Like, what are you talking about?" But what people don't see is like the internalized battle that I personally go through on a day-to-day basis of like questioning like, should I post this? Is this the best way to say this? The constant holding back of like, should I say that? Is this going to be something that's going to like go viral and bring a lot of hate my way? Like that constant thought process is something that I've come to accept is going to be a part of me because it's been very internalized, but it's something that I get to continue to work and that I get to continue to challenge myself with, which I like a good challenge. So I'm like, yeah, all about it. But with that being said, though, a second stem of that is just the whole upper limit thing too, of like, because I find myself sometimes limiting my voice, I find myself playing small. And
Hmm.
so I have to challenge myself to see, like, Wendy, you want to do this, go after it. And I have two perfect examples. Like, I'm launching a podcast next month that I announced to my personal Facebook page 3 years ago. But I was so scared to have a podcast because I'm like, no one's going to care. What if I say things the wrong way? Blah, blah, blah. Yet here I am having this beautiful conversation with you. I'm launching an agency that I sat on for 2 years as well. And I was like, what is going on? Why am I sitting on it? It's because I was like playing with my upper limits of like the internal voices that were going on holding me back. Well, you're good where you're at. Why do you want more? Well, the other people are already doing it, so why should you? You know what I mean? And so you got to just constantly challenge yourself. And that's why I'm a big proponent of like support too, because support is something that you can lean on to get out of your own way, to start playing a bigger game, to help you challenge yourself as well. So that's kind of just what I've been navigating and what's been my journey, continues to be my journey, but one that I am constantly challenging.
Yeah, it's a struggle for sure. Thank you for sharing that, and being so vulnerable about it. Because it's true. I mean, uh, something that I learned through meditation is sometimes you just have to take like an emotional inventory. Where am I at? Right? Is this feeling a feeling of imposter syndrome? Is this a feeling of me not being good enough? Like, where is that coming from? Can I just realize that that is a thought that I'm having, and then kind of like let it pass through instead of letting it dwindle and start going into a spiral about it?
Yeah.
Um, and really, there's no, if someone has mastered like not having an internal dialogue, please let me know. But I think it's just constant. There will be other things that come up that spark, those thoughts. And it's what you said. People are not seeing that. They're seeing the Wendy that is trying to play not small, like is trying to show up on stories, is trying to show up by launching Boldpreneur, launching the podcast, all these things. But the inner work, there's a lot of inner work that is happening behind the scenes, that people don't get to see as often. And it's just such a part of the process. It really is.
Yeah.
Because you need to like step out of that thought process.
Yeah. And, shout out to the friends, the partners, the husbands, because I can't tell you. And again, this is like what you don't see, how many times I've gone to bed crying because of a way that I was feeling in regards to my business, or how many times he's asked me, do you want me to just listen to you, or do you want me to provide feedback? Shout out to them because,
Yep.
that support system is necessary. And again, it's like what people don't see is like, yeah, the days that you are having a bad day, the days that you're going to bed crying, the days that things happen that are out of your control and you feel like, why am I in business in the first place? Right? If you're not asking that question, once in your journey, or, more often, like, what are we doing? Like, are you actually creating a business? Because I know that I've asked that before. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I appreciate you sharing because we're not alone in all of this, and the support system is a huge component of it all. My husband and I actually ask ourselves the same thing. Are you venting, or do you want to just vent? Do you want me to listen, or do you want me to try to give you support or give you a solution? And it's crazy how much just that question like makes you feel like there's intent behind the conversation, right? Like
Mhm.
now that person knows like, okay, I'm here to just listen, or I'm here to just give support. It's a constant cycle of trying to sort through your emotions, whether it's crying or like throwing something or just feeling super
Filling out a
frustrated.
pillow.
Yeah, feeling super frustrated or like venting to a friend. It's all part of the journey. And that's what makes it exciting. Or at least for me, it's just more of like there is a growth component to it. Like through those different things that are happening within your business, the emotions there, you are growing. You are getting closer to where you need to be. So anything else that you would want to share or give advice to someone that really wants to try to play bold.
I mean, I think one interesting thing that I fully back that you say is like the whole this is a growth journey. And I know sometimes like maybe you didn't start a business to be on this growth journey, but it is, right? Like I literally opened up enrollment to my program yesterday and I'm already looking back at Wendy on Monday and I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of you for doing that. You know what I mean? Like you've grown so much since the other launch that you had, right? And so you learn so much about yourself in the process. You grow so much. They always say that starting a business and running a business is one of the biggest growth journeys you're going to be on. And now, being almost 5 years in business, I'm realizing how freaking true that is. I'm like, wow. So I would say, like, accept that there's going to be good days and bad days, regardless of what you're seeing on social media. Like, everyone has their bad days, everyone has their own stories that they're going through behind the scenes. And that's what makes this journey actually kind of beautiful too, is because you're going on a growth journey. And if we were perfect and everything was good to go, we wouldn't be growing as individuals. So I would say, like, my biggest advice, embrace the growth journey.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
beautifully said. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all that you've shared, and um, I encourage everybody to go find Wendy on social media because her posts, I was telling her when we started, like are constant on my timeline, which I appreciate. And I can't wait for you to look back at this in a month or 2 months and see the podcast come up and see the agency come to life. I think that there's going to be, yeah, so much growth in between there that I'm super excited for you for. I just appreciate you being here and kind of being so present with us.
Of course. No, thank you for having me. This has been a beautiful opportunity. So thank you.